Peace to me means openness and expansion, a lightness. And conversely, when I'm not peaceful, I'm constricted and tight neck, tight jaw. So one thing that helps me to regain my peace and my openness is the gongs and the singing bowls. They're metal, and so not only do you hear them with your ears, but you feel them with your body. The vibration comes out into the room and you actually feel them with your body. And they penetrate not only your tissues and your cells, but your atoms. And I like to visualize, you know, the atoms has the little nucleus and the little things running around, there's space. I like to visualize that the vibrations can actually go through the spaces in our atoms and can shake out anything that's been constricted or holding us back and help us to be more open. So that's how I lead my gong song meditations, and that's what we're going to do tonight. I'll play the gongs for, how much time do you want?
5 or 7 minutes.
Yeah, play for about 5 or 7 minutes.
Well, it says 10 here, so.
I know, I don't know how your timing is. So what I like for you to do first is to sit more squarely in your chairs. Like in a yoga class, we would sit, you know, cross-legged, or like he says, lie down. Sit, and if you can, get both feet on the floor. And just place your hands gently in your lap or wherever's comfortable. Be aware where we always hold tension. And take a deep breath into your belly. Expand your belly, expand your ribs, expand up underneath your collarbone. And exhale through your mouth. Just squeeze it out. Keep squeezing out that air. And then when you feel the impulse, breathe in through your belly and your ribs and underneath your collarbone. And exhale it out. You can feel the spaciousness. Feel tension leave as you do this. And continue just taking a few more deep breaths. I'm going to play the gongs, and you continue to breathe and just relax, and perhaps set an intention for yourself to release anything that's holding you back from being peaceful or having peace in your life. When it's over, we'll sit for maybe a minute, half a minute in silence. Just be aware of how different the silence feels and sounds to you after having experienced the gongs. And then I'll once again tell you to take a deep breath and become aware of the room, and then you'll know to open your eyes. So that way you know when to come back and you don't have to worry about you should have your eyes open or not. So if you would, either close your eyes or just have a soft gaze down at your knees or at the floor. Just let your eyes be soft. And continue taking your nice deep breath. Breathe into your belly. awareness back into your body. Deepen your inhale. Lengthen your exhale. Wiggle your fingers and toes and take a nice yawn. Stretch up nice and tall in your seats. And feel free to raise your hands over your head and just want to get a big stretch. All that expansion. Hands on your thigh over the forehead and pray. Hands in front of your lips and pray. Hands in front of your heart. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you, Jamie. Yes. Even though it's, it may not be a performance, but it's a round of applause anyway. It's, wow, that's kind of hard to come back out of. Somebody just turn the lights on. Thank you, Jamie. We're going to utilize Jamie's magic a couple more times before this is over. That was fabulous. And again, may I welcome John Rule to the stage for another poem.
Well, we live and die by vibrations. I've been trying to think of a little badge or symbol for our human species as we go off to leave this planet and launch into the broader universe without ever having made peace with this one. And so I came up with this very short poem called Escutcheon, which means a scutum, a shield for humanity. And there are a couple of terms in it, jewels for the red rays and so forth, and bar sinister or ben sinister for supposedly illegitimate birth and so forth. Escutcheon. The device itself is simple enough. No jewels or sinister bars. Just wandering brazen question marks within a field of stars. The ground can be the black of space with a brilliant border of light, splashed with the azure and gold of sea and sky at eve, and flecked with blood for the deeds we've done and for those we grieve.
Thank you, John. We're so fortunate to have you. There's several ingredients to our remembrance that are consistent year after year, and one is the reading of some names to kind of bring home, to really make us realize that there were actual people who disappeared and were lost in this event in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And we have names of people that actually lived there at that time and perished. And so we have invited two people to help read tonight. This is just symbolic because we can't read all the names, but we can read some. And Jamie's going to help by ringing a distinctive different bell for each name. And so today we have two readers to help us with this. We have Tatsuya Fukushima over here, and also we have a lifelong friend of mine, Jane Scroggs. And one thing that's interesting about Jane is her former husband actually had a role in, he was a part of the Atomic Bomb Commission that actually designed medical follow-up studies for survivors of the victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So that's very appropriate to have Jane Scroggs here. And so Tatsuya and Jane, could you please come up and we'll do the reading of the names. Tatsuya actually helped us do this a couple of years ago, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It's good to have you back.
Many years ago, as a matter of fact.
Was it time flying?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Setsuko Yamamoto.
Mikio Inoue.
Yoshiaki Tamura.
Satoru Yoshimoto.
Koi Nakamachi.
Iwao Fukui.
Goro Ki Yoyoshi.
Fumie Enseki.
Takachito Sakai.
Fusataro Tanimine.
Samaka Yamada.
Kiyoaki Ueno.
Kazuo Matsumoro.
Yoshimi Hara.
Thank you both very, very much. Thank you. I'm glad we still do that. That's an important thing. Thank you. So, for our keynote speaker, now this is I've been looking so forward to this, and I'm not sure exactly what Abel's going to say, but I know it's going to be good stuff. I'm a big fan of our next speaker. He's a real peace hero for sure. He's actually the founder of the Arkansas Nonviolence Alliance. He's a frequent writer for the Free Weekly. He does op-eds. Whenever there's an issue that is, like the mainstream, you can tell that the mainstream media has got it wrong, but you can't figure out which way is up. And Abel Tomlinson is one of the people I look to figure out how to unravel those sort of things. He's the one that goes beyond what we consider mainstream media. He digs deep, he does his research, he's very knowledgeable, and I think we're really lucky to have him. And of course, the whole Korean situation that we hear about daily now is really hard to understand, and there's a lot more to it than we're getting on the mainstream media. And so Abel has put together a piece called Facing Nuclear Madness from Hiroshima to North Korea, and I'm very pleased to have Abel Tomlinson with us. Thank you.
Well, my printer was broken, so I have to have this laptop. Good evening. Thank you for being here and this opportunity to speak. I'm actually deeply honored to be able to do this. We're gathered here today to mark the anniversary of the only nuclear bombings of people in history. You already know the horror and inhumanity of these savage attacks, so what more can be said? What can be said about our present danger? Is there hope? These are questions I'll attempt to answer, and I may repeat things you know, but redundancy can be helpful, and we're recording this for other people on the internet that may not know as much as you guys do. Let's start with the Manhattan Project. Only this week did I learn about physicist Joseph Rotblat, a superhero for peace, after watching The Strangest Dream. It's a free documentary online, I highly recommend it. Of many brilliant scientists working on the Manhattan Project, Rotblat was the only one to quit. After the project head, General Groves, told him the real purpose of making the bombs is to subdue the Soviets. Not only was Rotblat a hero for quitting, but afterward he became a great peace leader. He was an original signatory of the Einstein-Russell Manifesto, and with Bertrand Russell, created the subsequent Pugwash conferences, working for peace with top scientists all over the world. We'll return to Rotblat, but first let's discuss Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Evidence indicates these bombings were political. 6 out of 7 5-star admirals and generals of World War II said the bombings were either morally reprehensible, militarily unnecessary, or both. And these are not pacifists. Eisenhower repeatedly urged the bomb not be used. And these are his words. He said, Japan was already defeated and dropping the bomb was completely unnecessary. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Leahy, said, the nuclear attacks were barbarous violation of every Christian ethic I've ever heard and all the known laws of war. Yet what affects me most are stories from Hibakusha, the survivors. And I'll mention just one, which is more powerful than cold statistics of thousands or hundreds of thousands being killed. And this is kind of a moving story, and it's pretty graphic, so if anyone's sensitive, they might want to plug their ears for 1 minute. This is the testimony of Michiko Kodama. And this testimony is on the the Friends AFC, the Friends website, the Quakers, anyway. Michiko said, this is the testimony, of Michiko Kodama, calling for abolition of what she calls weapons of the devil. Michiko said, I was 7 years old, a second grader, inside the wooden school building. Suddenly, at 8:15 a.m., I felt a blinding flash, and then the ceiling collapsed, and sharp splinters flew all around. They stuck in the walls, desks, and the floor, and also into my skin. My father managed to find me, and as he carried me home, I witnessed hell on earth. I saw a man with his skin burned heavily and peeling. A mother was carrying a baby, which looked like charcoal. She herself was heavily burned all over her body and was trying to flee, almost crawling on the ground. Others lost their sight, their eyeballs popped out, or ran around holding protruding intestines. People tried to cling on to us, saying, "Give me water, water, water." Unable to give help, we just left them there and hurried home. My favorite cousin, who was like a big sister to me, had her face, her entire back, and her right leg severely burned. Her burns quickly festered and flies swarmed. Soon maggots bred and crawled all over her body. All I could do for my beloved cousin was pick the maggots out and wipe her oozing body. After 3 days, she died in my arms. She was 14. And that's just half the story. You'll have to read it online if you want to finish it. After the bombings, many people were revolted, not least of which was Rot Blatt, Einstein, Bertrand Russell, Albert Schweitzer, and many others with beating hearts. This revulsion towards nuclear weapons was expressed well in the foundational document of the nuclear abolition movement, the Einstein-Russell Manifesto. And here's an excerpt of that manifesto. Here then is the problem which we present to you, stark and dreadful and inescapable. Shall we put an end to the human race, or shall mankind renounce war? There lies before us, if we choose, continual progress in happiness, knowledge, and wisdom. Shall we instead choose death because we cannot forget our quarrels? We appeal as human beings to human beings. Remember your humanity. Remember your humanity and forget the rest. If you can do so, the way lies open to a new paradise. If you cannot, there lies before you the risk of universal death. After this publication, the subsequent Pugwash conferences became very successful, providing background work for the partial test ban, non-proliferation, the anti-ballistic missile treaties, as well as the biological and chemical weapons conventions. Former Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara said Pugwash laid the groundwork for negotiations to end the Vietnam War. Gorbachev also admitted that the organization influenced his thinking while he was a Soviet leader, helping to end the Cold War. We'll skip many details of the Cold War, except to remember it was insane. Both sides built enough weapons and far bigger hydrogen bombs to threaten the existence of our entire species, not to mention other species. We must also remember over 2,000 nuclear tests were conducted, polluting the environment with radioactive waste. Not only did we poison our lands in Nevada and New Mexico, but we destroyed tropical islands with beautiful marine creatures surrounding them. Thankfully, progress was made. The Cold War ended, nuclear stockpiles were reduced, and testing halted. However, tensions between the U.S. and Russia were never fully ameliorated. After the Berlin Wall fell, U.S. leaders made verbal agreements with Russia not to expand NATO eastward. This was broken. The U.S. pushed NATO bases closer and closer to Russian borders, with some bases holding nuclear warheads. Imagine you're Russian. Imagine you're a Russian citizen. How would you feel about increasingly being surrounded by military bases and nuclear bombs and war games? Answer: exactly how Americans felt during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Russians are living under constant threat, and with U.S. wars across Southwest Asia, Putin even said in his Munich speech, I recommend you reading that, the mainstream media won't let you hear what he says. He's not the best person, but he does have some good things to say. And he said because of these wars, in the Middle East and these threats, this results in the fact that no one feels safe. I want